Welcome back to ABC General Hospital Spoilers channel. Today, we will learn about the shocking family fallout that's tearing the Falconeri clan apart in Port Charles. In the twisted world of General Hospital, family reunions often come with more drama than harmony, and Gio's fragile return to the fold just hit a devastating roadblock courtesy of his hot-headed father, Dante. What started as a glimmer of hope for reconciliation exploded into a heated confrontation that left everyone reeling, raising tough questions about whether Dante's explosive reaction to his son's predicament was truly justified or just another outburst of misplaced rage. Picture the scene, a hospital room thick with tension, where whispers of regret mix with shouts of accusation as the weight of parental fears crashes down on fragile bonds. Joe, the once exiled violin prodigy, had been inching toward forgiveness after years of strained relations, but Dante's fury threatened to shatter that progress entirely, forcing viewers to wonder if blood ties can survive such raw emotional turmoil. This incident isn't just a plot twist, it's a deep dive into the messy dynamics of father-son loyalty, where one wrong move can unravel years of tentative healing. Poor Rocco, the innocent heart of this chaos, embodies the tragic figure of a young boy caught in the crossfire of adult schemes and youthful impulsiveness. At just a teenager, he's already weathered storms that would break most adults. From the harrowing night of alcohol poisoning that nearly claimed his life to his current nightmare in a grim juvenile detention center, surrounded by cold walls and uncertain futures, Rocco's spirit shines through his unwavering goodness. He's the kid who stands up for his friends, even when it costs him dearly. But Port Charles has a way of punishing the pure-hearted. His latest misstep? Joining Danny and Charlotte in a daring, ill-fated break-in at Dalton's high-security lab, a place buzzing with experimental gadgets and forbidden secrets that no kid should ever touch. The trio, fueled by a misguided sense of heroism, convinced themselves they were on a noble mission to uncover truths hidden by the lab's shadowy operations, perhaps even tying into larger conspiracies involving corporate espionage or medical breakthroughs gone wrong. But reality hit hard when alarms blared and authorities swarmed, turning their adventure into a felony nightmare. Rocco's selflessness peaked when he stepped forward, confessing to the crime to shield Danny and Charlotte from the fallout. A noble act that now echoes with irony as he faces solitary confinement and the looming threat of a tarnished record that could haunt his college dreams. The break-in itself was a powder keg of teenage rebellion mixed with good intentions as Rocco, Danny, and Charlotte bypassed locked doors and surveillance cams in a frantic bid to expose what they believed was Dalton's involvement in unethical experiments. Rumors swirled of bioengineered serums that could alter human behavior, adding a sci-fi edge to their quest for justice. Driven by stories they'd overheard from Joe and Emma about the lab's dark underbelly, the kids saw themselves as pint-sized detectives, armed with flashlights and borrowed keycards, sneaking through dimly lit corridors lined with humming machinery and glowing vials. Yet, what they didn't anticipate was the lab's state-of-the-art security, motion sensors that triggered silent alerts, and guards trained to handle intruders with zero tolerance. Rocco's decision to take the fall wasn't just bravery. It was a calculated risk born from his protective instincts, yelling for his friends to flee while he stalled the cops with a fabricated story about a solo joyride gone wrong. Now, as he sits in detention, whispers among the inmates paint him as a folk hero, but the psychological toll is mounting. Sleepless nights replaying the chaos, and letters from home that only deepen his isolation. This event underscores the perils of kids playing hero in a world of adult dangers, where one impulsive choice ripples into lifelong consequences, leaving families fractured and futures uncertain. Dante's distress over Rocco's arrest is as visceral as it is relatable, a father's primal fear manifesting in waves of anger and helplessness that any parent watching this unfold can feel in their bones. Imagine the gut-wrenching phone call from the precinct detailing how his boy is wide-eyed, trusting Rocco was handcuffed and carted away like a common criminal, all because of a scheme that spiraled out of control. Dante's world narrowed to that hospital bed where Joe dropped the bombshell, he was the one who initially looped the teens into the elaborate plot hatched with Emma. A plan meant to infiltrate Dalton's lab for intel on potential threats to Port Charles' elite. In Danny's mind, this revelation painted Joe as the villainous architect, the puppet master whose whispers lured innocent kids into peril. Without that fateful introduction, Rocco might still be safe at home, practicing soccer kicks in the backyard instead of staring down bars. The detective's fear isn't abstract, it's rooted in flashbacks to his own brushes with danger on the force, projecting those nightmares onto his son's vulnerable shoulders. Who wouldn't lash out in such a moment? Dante's outburst, though, veers into overdrive, his voice echoing off sterile walls as he demands accountability, his fists clenched against the helplessness of a badge that can't badge his family out of this mess. This raw emotion highlights the double-edged sword of fatherhood in Soapland, where love and fury blur, often at great cost to mending fences. Dante's pattern of pinning the blame squarely on Joe reveals a deeper rift in their father-son dynamic, one that's festered since Gio's arrival in Port Charles like an untreated wound. Time and again, from the alcohol poisoning fiasco, where Joe was unfairly scapegoated, despite his clean hands, Dante had raged about the violinist's bad influence, even as evidence cleared him to this latest lab debacle. The detective defaults to finger-pointing, as if externalizing fault eases his own guilt over being an absent dad during key moments. Back then, amid the poisoning scare, Dante had stormed into family gatherings, accusing Joe of leading Rocco astray with tales of musical adventures that masked darker intentions, ignoring how the incident stemmed from peer pressure at a wild party unrelated to the newcomer. Fast forward to now, and the cycle repeats. Gio's mere existence seems to ignite Dante's insecurities, especially after paternity tests confirm their blood bond, a revelation that should have bridged gaps but instead amplified resentments. Analysts of the show's family arcs might note how this mirrors real-life blended family struggles, where new siblings stir old jealousies. But in Port Charles, it escalates to operatic levels. Dante's refusal to see Gio's remorse as genuine, dismissing his explanations as excuses, only widens the chasm, turning potential allies into adversaries and underscoring how unchecked blame can poison even the strongest genetic ties. Joe and Emma's role in dragging the teens into their covert operation was a colossal error in judgment, one that now haunts them like a bad melody stuck on repeat, as they grapple with the fallout of their secretive alliance. What began as a duo's quest to probe Dalton's lab for clues about experimental drugs, potentially linked to recent town mysteries, think shadowy figures peddling enhancements at underground, raves quickly ballooned when they confided in Rocco, Danny, and Charlotte, believing the kids' enthusiasm could provide fresh eyes without real risk. Emma, with her tech-savvy background from past hacking escapades, mapped out entry points via blueprints smuggled from City Hall, while Joe used his charm to hype the mission as a family adventure minus the danger. But hindsight is 20/20ths. They overlooked the teens' impulsiveness, how boredom and a thirst for excitement could turn a reconnaissance gig into a full-blown heist. Now, racked with guilt, Joe and Emma have resolved to atone by going public with their involvement, drafting confessions that detail every step from initial brainstorming sessions in dimly lit cafes to the frantic calls aborting the plan too late. This self-reckoning isn't just plot-driven, it's a character evolution, showing how even Port Charles schemers must face the human cost of their ambitions, potentially redeeming themselves through advocacy for Rocco's release or legal aid. In a bold move toward redemption, Joe laid it all bare to Dante and Brooklyn in that charged hospital showdown, owning his slice of the pie with a vulnerability that cut through the room's hostility like a solo violin note. He recounted the scheme's origins, late-night strategy huddles where he and Emma pieced together intel on Dalton's projects, from bioluminescent serums tested on volunteers to data leaks hinting at corporate cover-ups. Admitting he roped in the teens for backup was the hardest pill, especially as Brooklyn's eyes widened in shock. her maternal instincts flaring at the thought of her own ties to the family being implicated. Dante's response? A volcanic eruption of fury that drowned out reason, his accusations flying like daggers calling Joe reckless, a magnet for trouble who poisons everything he touches. This wasn't mere anger. It was a regression to old habits, undoing the tentative steps toward fatherhood Joe had witnessed, like shared coffees or awkward advice sessions post-paternity reveal. The violinist's calm demeanor in the face of the tirade only amplified the tragedy, as he detailed how he and Emma explicitly called off the op after sensing risks, only for the kids to defy them in a surge of independence. Dante's tunnel vision fixated on blame rather than solutions escalated the scene into a full-blown family implosion, with nurses peeking in and security on standby. Dante's over-the-top meltdown in the hospital corridor wasn't an isolated flare-up. It echoed the scapegoating from the alcohol poisoning era, where he vilified Joe as the root of Rocco's woes despite zero evidence tying the musician to the incident. That night, as Rocco retched from tainted punch at a forbidden bash, Dante had burst into the ear, eyes locked on Joe like he was the devil incarnate, ranting about outsiders corrupting our bloodline while ignoring the real culprits, shady dealers lurking at teen hangouts. The irony stung deeper once DNA confirmed Joe as kin, prompting Danny's half-hearted amends gifts of sheet music, invitations to ball games that now feel hollow in light of this relapse. His temper, honed from years on the force-chasing Port Charles villains, spills into personal life unchecked, turning a moment for unity into division. Experts dissecting such arcs would point to unresolved daddy issues fueling Dandy's projections, but on screen, it manifests as visceral drama, veins bulging, words weaponized, leaving Joe shell-shocked and the room's air electric with unspoken regrets. This setback isn't just relational. It ripples outward, straining alliances with Brooklyn and hinting at legal battles where Danny's testimony could sway Rocco's fate. Gio's painstaking explanation of the aborted plan fell on deaf ears as Dandy's blame game drowned out any nuance, transforming a potential olive branch into a battlefield of egos and grievances. He described the frantic pivot after intel suggested Dalton's guards were armed and the lab wired with experimental alarms that could deploy non-lethal gases. Joe and Emma issued a hard stop via group texts, urging the teens to stand down and pivot to safer sleuthing like anonymous tips to the PCPD. But Danny's thrill-seeking, Charlotte's determination, and Rocco's loyalty forged ahead, slipping past a side entrance under cover of night fog rolling off the harbor. Dante, red-faced and unyielding, waved it off as semantics, insisting the original spark from Joe ignited the fire, ignoring how parental oversights, like lax supervision during a school break, shared the load. This refusal to listen not only alienated his son, but exposed Danny's blind spots, where fear masquerades as justice, potentially costing him Gio's trust for good. In the aftermath, as Joe stormed out, vowing silence on the dad front, the hospital lights flickered like a metaphor for their dimming bond, leaving fans hooked on whether this fracture will heal or herald more explosive revelations in Port Charles' ever-turbulent tapestry. Next, we will learn about the explosive fallout from Rocco's arrest that has the entire town of Port Charles reeling in shock and controversy. The dramatic aftermath of Rocco's shocking arrest unfolded with intense fervor right from the opening moments of this week's General Hospital episodes, pulling viewers deeper into a web of family betrayals and moral dilemmas. As the dust settled in the wake of the chaotic events, Britt emerged as a central figure, confronting her daughter Emma with a barrage of accusations over her indirect role in dragging young Rocco into the dangerous scheme aimed at unmasking Dalton's hidden agenda. This tense hospital hallway showdown, where Britt's grip on Emma's arm symbolized years of unresolved grudges, set the stage for a riveting clash that highlighted the fractured bonds within the Scorpio Drake lineage. Fans, glued to their screens, couldn't help but feel the electric tension, knowing that such confrontations often unearth long-buried secrets in Port Charles. Adding layers to the drama, Britt's fury wasn't just about the immediate fallout. It stemmed from her deep-seated fear that her own complicated past with Patrick had poisoned their family dynamics, making Emma's choices feel like a personal betrayal. This scene masterfully showcased how one reckless decision can ripple through generations, forcing characters to confront not only their present mistakes, but the ghosts of relationships long gone sour. The storied tension between Britt and Emma, rooted in the turbulent romance Britt shared with Patrick during her days as the infamous Britch, has always simmered beneath the surface, ready to boil over at any provocation. Back when Britt was entangled in that whirlwind affair, filled with manipulations and heartfelt deceptions, it left scars that Emma, as a young witness to her parents' unraveling, could never fully erase. Now, with Rocco, a bright-eyed triplet, caught in the crossfire bearing the brunt of Emma's plot to expose Dalton's shadowy dealings, Britt's lecture on morality struck many as a poignant yet painfully ironic twist. Emma's scheme, which involved enlisting the innocent boy to gather incriminating evidence against Dalton, was meant to protect the family, but instead spiraled into legal peril, landing Rocco in handcuffs and under scrutiny from authorities. Britt's words cut deep as she accused Emma of endangering a child for her own vendetta, drawing parallels to the very manipulations Britt herself had orchestrated in her quest for control over Patrick and their future. This hypocrisy wasn't lost on astute viewers, who recalled Britt's own history of using emotional leverage during her pregnancy with Ben's secretly Dante and Lulu's son, a chapter that nearly destroyed lives and reputations across town. In this extended confrontation, the episode delved into psychological depths, exploring how parental hypocrisy can either forge resilience in a child or widen irreparable rifts, with Emma's defiant glare suggesting the latter. The dialogue crackled with authenticity, revealing Emma's frustration at being judged by someone whose life has been a tapestry of ethical gray areas, from corporate espionage at ELQ to romantic entanglements that left Patrick questioning his loyalties. What made the hospital confrontation an absolute standout was the sheer entertainment value packed into every exchanged glare and pointed barb, serving as a microcosm of General Hospital's signature blend of soap opera flair and raw human emotion. As Britt unleashed her tirade, calling out Emma for roping Rocco into a web of deceit that exposed the triplets to unnecessary risks, the scene pulsed with high-stakes drama that had audiences on the edge of their seats. Kelly Thiebaud's portrayal of Britt was a tour de force, her eyes flashing with a mix of maternal protectiveness and self-righteous indignation, while Brettonsel's Emma countered with a fiery vulnerability that underscored her youth and impulsiveness. This wasn't mere scolding, it was a theatrical unpacking of accountability, with Britt invoking the potential long-term trauma on Rocco, who now faces not just juvenile records, but the stigma of being labeled a delinquent in a town where reputations are currency. Fans relished the irony, remembering Britt's own playbook of schemes like her elaborate fake-out with the Prince of Casadini Island or her role in the DVX scandals that mirrored Emma's tactics on a grander, more destructive scale. The episode amplified this by intercutting flashbacks to Britt's past misdeeds, subtly reminding viewers why her moral high ground felt so shaky. Ultimately, the scene's brilliance lay in its ability to humanize both women, Britt as a flawed guardian haunted by her demons, and Emma as a headstrong teen navigating the treacherous waters of Port Charles intrigue, where exposing one villain often creates another. While Britt's anger was undeniably justified after all, the emotional toll on Rocco, who idolized Emma as a big sister figure, was heartbreaking, with the boy now grappling with confusion and guilt over his unwitting participation. Her position as the disciplinarian raised eyebrows for its profound lack of self-awareness. Rocco's involvement wasn't just a footnote, it was a catalyst that could reshape the triplets' futures, from schoolyard whispers to family therapy sessions that might strain the already fragile Falconeri household. Britt's outrage peaked when she revealed how she felt personally violated, believing Emma had manipulated Rocco's trust to settle her score with Dalton, a man whose secrets could unravel major alliances in Port Charles. Yet, for Britt of all people, whose resume includes betraying confidences and endangering innocence in her pursuit of personal gain. Stepping into the role of moral arbiter seemed like a scripted punchline. Imagine the irony if Anna, with her spy-honed intuition, had intervened earlier, perhaps diffusing the plot before it implicated the children, but instead, Britt took center stage. Her lecture laced with projections of her own regrets. This moment invited deeper reflection on redemption arcs in soaps. Can someone like Britt, who has clawed her way back from villainy through acts of quiet heroism, truly guide the next generation without hypocrisy tainting the lesson? The episode layered in new tensions by hinting at upcoming fallout, like potential custody battles or Emma seeking solace from unlikely allies like Spencer Casadini, adding fresh intrigue to the narrative. Social media platforms like X erupted in a frenzy following the powerhouse performances by Thibaut and Cell, with fans universally praising the electric chemistry that made the confrontation unforgettable. One enthusiastic viewer tweeted, "GH delivered gold with Britt and Emma's clash. Kelly and Bretton's synergy is chef's kiss perfection, turning family drama into must-watch TV." This consensus on acting prowess bridged divides, as the scene's raw intensity transcended biases, capturing the essence of Port Charles' emotional volatility. Diving deeper, the online discourse revealed a polarized fanbase, with some staunchly defending Britt's stance amid the chaos. An ex-post captured the sentiment, "Unpopular take, but I'm Team Britt all the way. This mess is squarely on Emma's shoulders for pulling the triplets into her revenge fantasy against Dalton." Supporters argued that Emma's recklessness not only jeopardized Rocco, but echoed broader themes of youthful hubris, potentially setting up storylines where the girl faces professional repercussions, like losing internship opportunities at the hospital. Another fan elaborated, "Britt's spot on here. The blame falls on Emma and Joe for dragging those innocent kids into their vendetta. And now Rocco's paying the steepest price. Heartbreaking, but necessary wake-up call." This perspective gained traction, with users dissecting how the triplets' involvement amplified the stakes, possibly leading to interventions from figures like Dante, who might blame himself for not shielding his son better. The conversation evolved into analyses of accountability, noting how General Hospital often uses such crises to explore the collateral damage of adult conflicts on children, with Rocco's arc potentially mirroring past child-centric plots like those involving Scout or Avery. On the flip side, a chorus of fans called out Britt's intervention as peak irony, given her checkered history of exploiting vulnerabilities for her own ends, turning the scene into a meta-commentary on soap tropes. One witty post read, "Britt scolding Emma for weaponizing a kid? Hilarious, considering she pulled the exact same stunt with Ben during her baby switcheroo pot. Meet Kettle." This backlash highlighted Britt's evolution from antagonist to anti-hero, but questioned whether her growth justified lecturing Emma, whose scheme, while flawed, stemmed from a desire to protect the family from Dalton's manipulations. A more nuanced take came from a fan who wrote, "Not hating on Britt, but she nailed it by holding Emma accountable for the fallout on Danny, Charlotte, and especially Rocco. Even if the kid chose to help, the consequences are brutal and all trace back to her delusions." Here, the discussion branched into ethical debates. Was Rocco's agency as a triplet old enough to absolve Emma, or did her influence as a role model make her the true culprit? Fans speculated on ripple effects, inventing scenarios where this incident fuels a triplet rebellion storyline, with Rocco confiding in Rocco's mother Lulu about feeling used, or Danny bonding with Emma over shared guilt. Another voice chimed in, "Britt's mic drop line about using kids as pawns? Iconic. But girl, you did it too, when pregnant with that Casadini air talk about projection." This exchange sparked threads on character consistency, praising how GH weaves hypocrisy into redemption, potentially setting Britt up for a humbling twist where her past catches up via a Dalton retaliation plot. Yet amid the heated debates, a compelling counterpoint emerged. Britt, for all her valid points, wasn't the ideal messenger to deliver this particular lesson on ethics and child endangerment, amplifying the scene's dramatic irony to Shakespearean levels. Fans pointed out that her hypercritical tone overshadowed the message, with one declaring, "Valid concerns, but Britt teaching morality? She's the definition of hypocritical would have loved Anna or Felicia stepping into school Emma properly." This critique opened doors to broader storytelling analysis, questioning why Port Charles matriarchs like Felicia, with her earthy wisdom from Scorpio family adventures, or Anna, the ultimate spy mom, were absent during such a pivotal moment. Imagine Felicia pulling Emma aside for a heartfelt talk about the Scorpio legacy of tough love without the baggage, or Anna using her WSB training to deconstruct the scheme's flaws logically. Instead, Britt's involvement added a layer of unintended comedy, as her delivery fierce, yet flawed mirrored her character's journey from schemer to reluctant sage. This fan insight also spotlighted a nagging loose end. In the midst of all this granddaughter drama, why has no one in town batted an eye at Anna's abrupt departure back to WSB headquarters? Her vanishing act, just as family tensions peaked, feels suspiciously timed, perhaps a setup for international intrigue pulling her away, or a deliberate avoidance of the messy Drake family dynamics that once included her own romantic entanglements with Robert and beyond. This oversight in the narrative fuels speculation. Could Anna's exit be tied to Dalton's exposure, hinting at a larger conspiracy where WSB resources are needed to contain the fallout? As Port Charles navigates these turbulent waters, the absence of key figures like Anna only heightens the sense that bigger storms are brewing, leaving fans eagerly awaiting how this arrest saga evolves into even more twists. In wrapping up this whirlwind of drama, the Rocco arrest fallout underscores General Hospital's timeless appeal, a town where personal vendettas collide with profound consequences, challenging characters to grow amid the hypocrisy. With Britt and Emma's clash setting off aftershocks across family lines, including potential rifts in the triplets' world and unanswered questions about Anna's whereabouts, viewers are left pondering the true cost of secrets in Port Charles. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into these unfolding stories, your go-to source for all the latest GH spoilers.